I'd like to call to order this regular City Council meeting of February 21st, 2019. Please call the roll.
Kuiper.
Here.
Isa.
Here.
Flora.
Here.
Gage.
Here.
Coos.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Brings us down to communications. We have some laid on the table for informational purposes on the community grant program. We have a letter from Jay Rose of the IBW. Person to be heard. Oh, no, person to be heard. We have Danita Odell.
Good evening, Danita Odell with First City Homeless Services, 400 Main Street. I was just here to let you know that we, several board members and myself, are here this evening to answer any questions later on in the meeting when you're discussing our request. That was it.
Thank you very much. Jay?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I want to make a correction. That letter that's laid down is from the IBW Business Manager, Dave Reeves. City and KPU employees, through their unions, bargain with management in an attempt to improve their standard of living and at least keep up with inflation. Time and again, it's the same story. We can't afford it. When the disparity becomes undeniable, compensation studies are done, and the results show what we already know. But these studies are ignored or not fully implemented. It seems increasingly common for the city to offer much higher wages in order to fill some positions. And then there are others who receive wage increases without the support of a compensation study, while the other employees continue their hard work and dedication to this community, hoping that they will be treated fairly. And that is what I ask tonight, that you treat all your employees with dignity and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Tatsuda.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, my name is Bill Tatsuda, and co-owner of Tatsuda's IGA. I came here today as a longtime resident of Ketchikan to ask you not to contract with consultants to study the lease renewal with Peace Health. I believe that there is no need for a study because Peace Health is and has been providing excellent management of our hospital, and that its lease should be renewed. For the past 6.5 years, I have been on the Peace Health Ketchikan Medical Center board, along with several other longtime local residents. I see my role on the board as a representative of my hometown, Ketchikan, to help ensure that Peace Health is doing its best to provide dependable and stable, safe, quality health care to Ketchikan. Other local residents who are on the board and not employees of Peace Health are Clay Keene, Tina Williams, Russell Cochran, Sherry Bollert, Bob Bertle, and now Carl Amelon. Julie Sandy has been a recent board member, but she recently was appointed to the state board and removed herself from our board. We are on the board to ensure that Peace Health is doing its best to provide quality health care in Ketchikan. We are all looking out for Ketchikan and not necessarily for Peace Health. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm here today representing myself and not Peace Health. I was not sent by them, but I feel that I must speak my mind on this important community issue. In my opinion, Peace Health is an excellent organization, financially strong, with very professional, very capable management and staff. I have been chairman of the board's quality committee for several years, and I have seen firsthand Peace Health's accomplishments and continued high scores in providing safe, quality health care to its patients. It has a 4-star rating by CMS, Social Security, and Medicare, which is only surpassed by very few much larger hospitals in very large cities where they can offer more specialized care. A 4-star rating is the official confirmation that we have an excellent hospital. Peace Health is not an ordinary healthcare business. They take their mission, vision, and values seriously, and it is evident throughout the organization. Their mission statement is, "We carry on the healing mission of Jesus Christ by promoting personal and community health, relieving pain and suffering, and treating each person in a loving and caring way." Core values are respect, stewardship, collaboration, and social justice. And their vision, every person receives safe, compassionate care every time, every touch. Just so you know, I am not a religious person, but I am absolutely impressed by how seriously Peace Health integrates its mission, values, and vision into the everyday operation of Ketchikan Medical Clinic. Peace Health has created a very positive culture and work environment for its associates, and this translates to a high-quality experience for its patients. This is definitely not an ordinary healthcare business with a profit motive. No one gets turned away at the door when they need healthcare. Ability to pay is not a factor. Peace Health provides millions of dollars in uncompensated care every year to Ketchikan. Net revenues generated here stay here. We have a state-of-the-art equipment which is unusual for a small hospital. 300 to 400 people work here at Peace Health. It is the largest private employer in Ketchikan. These are good-paying jobs with benefits. When the city of Ketchikan built the hospital, it hoped to provide health care to people living here. In partnership with Peace Health, this has been hugely successful. So why would you want to look for alternatives? You have what you want already. It's currently a win-win situation. Now think a few steps ahead. What are the possible outcomes of a study? 1, retain Peace Health, or 2, look for another management organization. If the answer is 1, you do not need the study in the first place. Think about the second alternative. Think about the disruption of healthcare services, uncertainty of job security for 300 to 400 local workers. What list of services will you have to require in your lease to make sure that the new organization provides services equal or greater than what Peace Health is already doing voluntarily based on what they think is the right thing to do, even though many of these services individually are provided at a loss? How will you ensure a culture committed to exceptional medicine and compassionate care? How will you get them to see that every person receives safe, compassionate care every time, every touch? Are you ready for the tension, turmoil, and angst you could possibly be creating by going down this road? I just heard on the news that Sitka has suspended surgeries due to caregiver terminations, leading up to CERT taking over their hospital. There's a critical shortage of providers nationwide. Recruiting healthcare workers is hard enough without adding the uncertainty that will come from an RFP for hospital management. There will be disruptions if you go down that road. $200,000 is just the beginning. An RFP will cost. Reviewing and vetting applicants will cost. And legal considerations will cost all of us in time, money, and emotional energy. Why do you feel the need to contract an outside party to study this lease renewal? What terrible performance by Peace Health are you concerned about that would cause you to disrupt this great partnership you already have? Was it the billing problems? Much progress is made in that area. Was it the issue with consul representation on the hospital board? Carl is now on the board. Our local board members helped make this happen. What other problems? Let us know and we can try to fix them. Are you trying to show that you're doing due diligence? There are questions about whether or not the firm or firms contracted for the study can be unbiased. Now, with Peace Health agreeing to pay for part of the study, how unbiased does that look? Study or no study, it's not going to look good anyway. Let me offer this suggestion. Put this study on hold for now. Let's all get together as much as necessary so you can learn what Peace House is doing here. Learn about the service lines being provided. Review the results of the many formal government-mandated inspections and surveys that confirm that the quality of health care being provided here is excellent. Learn about the policies that provide for continuing improvement in quality. Learn about the free care provided residents who cannot pay. Learn about the service lines that do not pay for themselves, but are provided because they're the right thing to do, such as physical therapy, home health, and even the medical clinic that employs almost every doctor in town. None of these are making money on their own. And finally, meet the dedicated healthcare workers who make it all happen. After doing all this, I do not think you will see the need for a study or to look for another management team. I'm asking that you spend time with us instead of spending money on a study. Given the recent budget sent down by the governor, you may need to save this money for more important and more beneficial purposes. And I'm not alone tonight. Dr. Johnson's here, Russ Cochran, and I thought Tina Williams was coming, but she's not here. So anyway, that's my comment tonight. Thank you for being attentive, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Bill. Deborah Hayden.
My name's Deborah Hayden, Honorable Mayor and City Council Member and Clerk Stanker. First off, I want to thank the Community Grant Committee for the hard work they did on sorting out the community grants for nonprofits. As you know, I'm pretty intensely involved with various nonprofits, and I really appreciate it. Those books that you had to go through were at least this big. That thick. They must have weighed 670 pounds. And so it's very much appreciated that you did that. But I'm here tonight representing Grow Ketchikan. And in regard to the amount, up to the fact that you didn't assign any money to the SBDC, I affirm you in that decision. Grow Ketchikan is an economic development organization that provides business services and business assistance to local businesses. And it has recently become much more active than it has been for a while. But regardless of whether Grow Ketchikan is active in that area, I am personally. So those services that the SBDC would provide are present and existent and active in Ketchikan, either through a nonprofit, Grow Ketchikan, or through me personally with my long, long history of doing business assistance. A few years ago, I was contracted with KIC to carry out their business development program. We had 13 local business clients. We did market research studies, financial analysis, financial projections, business plans, all the things that an SBDC would advise people to do, but perhaps not do for them. We did it for them. And so we have also been created a 3-county economic development region in another state in which we provided those same services to local entrepreneurs, helped them find new markets, helped them do business plans, all of those things. So those services are available here in Ketchikan, and without the city giving any money to the SBDC. And we have offered to partner with the SBDC because Grow Ketchikan can get grants that they cannot get. And so we can provide that extra piece of funding that they were here asking for if they will partner with us. We've made that offer. We haven't yet heard back. But whether they respond or not, those services, I assure you, will be available here in Ketchikan and on a more active basis going forward. So that's mostly what I wanted to assure you of.
Thank you, Deborah. Any questions? Thank you. Russ Cochran.
Good evening.
Evening, Russ.
My name is Russ Cocker, 5791 North Tongass Highway. First of all, Bill forgot to give you your copies. So, I'm just here to go on the record that I 100% support Mr. Tatsuda's efforts and his eloquent presentation there. I have a whole list of issues with the city, but I'm not going to muddy the waters tonight with my problems. But I'm totally against my tax dollars being spent on a study like this without a first sit-down summit with Peace Health. I'm in fact on their board. Bill and I got on there at the same time. And we don't work for Peace Health. We work for every citizen of this community. Can't imagine the phone calls I get. And I welcome them. And I take their story back to the people at Peace Health. But I'm here for them. But in this atmosphere, what's going on in the state right now, I just don't think this is a great idea. I went around town the last couple of weeks, brought this up. If it wasn't a blank stare, somebody had no clue what I was talking about, the next thing I got was a laugh. I'm sorry, but I just hope there's another way to go about this that might be less painful, because it's not going to be pretty in the end, I believe, if we go down this route without first doing the steps in the order that Mr. Tatsuda brought forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Any questions? We have Chris Harris. Parks. Oh, yeah. Hi, Park. Hey, Chris.
Good evening. Chris Parks, 3560 Fairview Avenue. I'm the general manager of Tongass Trading Company. And I wanted to thank you guys, first of all, for all the hard work you do. I know it's a lot of effort on your part to come here in these meetings and put all the time in and to listen to everybody's wants, needs, complaints. It's not an easy job, so thank you for that, first and foremost. But I wanted to comment on the Port Development Project and the consulting services contract being considered tonight. As a business operator, employer, and property owner in downtown Ketchikan, I have some serious concerns about overall the whole project. First and foremost is the crucial importance of the cruise ship visitor industry to our local economy. Tongass Trading Company employs 50 people full-time, year-round, with good wages, healthcare benefits, and a retirement plan. We also employ another 70 people seasonally during the vital summer season, May through September. These employees own or rent houses, apartments, and condos, and patronize all of their businesses in town, and they also utilize city and borough services such as the library, the rec center, the borough bus, the hospital, and more. As a business, in 2018, we generated $1.1 million in sales and property taxes for the city and borough of Ketchikan. This does not include the tax revenues generated personally by our 120 employees when they buy or rent homes, buy groceries, eat at restaurants, or utilize other services in town. Now multiply that times the many other cruise industry businesses, retail, tour operators, support services, and more. It's huge for Ketchikan. Now when we look at our other industries and employment in Ketchikan, the seafood industry is solid but very limited, and it's been on the downturn the last couple of years. As you probably know, our Derby got canceled last year. Kingfishing's been really restricted. And we also have the hospital and the shipyard our largest employers, but they are, and to be honest, they're subsidized, by government, and they're very necessary and vital parts of our community. But right now, they're not really growing. I know the shipyard had some layoffs this year, and logging is an industry that's basically gone. The rest of our employment is federal, state, and local government. The federal government is $22 trillion in debt, and the state government is basically broke. Just look at the governor's recent budget. It's ugly no matter which way you look at it. My point is the cruise ship industry is more critical to our local economic well-being now than it ever has been. And we need to redevelop our port as quickly as is humanly possible to have 4 full-size berths to accommodate the newer ships in the industry. It concerns me when I hear people say, do we need more cruise ship visitors? Well, by not acting, not only will we miss out on the growth, we will lose visitor traffic, as the majority of the future growth will be bigger ships replacing smaller ones, not additional ships. If we cannot accommodate the bigger ships, they will go to other ports, and we will lose the visitor traffic of the smaller ships that was replaced. Norwegian Cruise Lines is currently building a post-Panamax cruise ship berth in Hoona to accommodate ships that cannot go to Skagway. I don't think that can't happen here with a new development somewhere nearby if we're unable or unwilling to accommodate the new ships. There's already been talk of a development in Hobart Bay. Like it or not, we need the cruise ship industry and the tax base and jobs it generates. Now, regarding the proposed consulting services contract on the agenda tonight, I have some concerns. First, in the memo proposing this new contract, it states that a contract was authorized by the City Council on September 6, 2018 to hire Bermello and Amajal and for professional services to review a port of Ketchikan development and financing options. The scope of services were as follows. Task 1, understanding the underlying cruise demand and market forces. That's pretty straightforward. Task 2 was understanding the current project. This is where I have some concerns. B&A claims they made contact with the cruise industry for reaction and feedback on the 2 concept design alternatives, and they state that the comments they received were positive. The first concern here is that they never talked to the cruise line agency or Southeast Stevedoring. Those are the people responsible for loading and unloading the ships. How do you understand a current project without talking to them? The second concern here is that they never reviewed, as far as I can tell, to the best of my knowledge, the current project. Did they ever do a cost review of the Moffett and Nichols plan? Did anybody ever ask Moffett and Nichols to sharpen their pencils and provide some lower cost alternative plans? As far as I know, B&A never consulted or got feedback from anyone here who uses the port or is affected by the port. Property owners, businesses, tour operators. How can you understand a project without even talking to the people and entities that are utilizing the infrastructure? I know they proposed that in this new proposal to do some of that, but way past the fact. It appears to me that they took Moffett and Nichols' work and repackaged it with their own alternative proposal. In the cover letter for the new proposal, Mr. Ajamal states, the purpose is to validate the new concepts, including public and community impacts, and 3 presentations to the council. My concern here is that it appears to me their conclusion will be to validate the new concept. They've already made up their mind what they're going to propose. Why are we going to pay $295,000 when we already know what the proposal will be? In his phase 1 concept validation, he has multiple points of study, but only after he's presented his findings to the City Council and done the majority of the study will they obtain public comments on the new alternatives. I was here involved in the discussions, meetings, and such in the 2004-2006 when we did our last port expansion. And it was very contentious, if any of you remember that at all. For those of you who weren't involved at the time, we had multiple expansion concepts and 2 major failures before we finally came up with a successful plan that resulted in what we have today. The first failure was the preferred concept of a T-pier, which I was for, by the way, but it was a failure. When it came close to being the proposal, the sea pilots chimed in and said it was unsafe and unworkable to have T-piers in the channel. This concept was proposed and promoted by this very same Bermello and Ajamal firm. The second failure was the initial bond vote for $73 million, or I can't remember the exact amount, it was around $70 million, to complete the project. 2 weeks before the vote, an opposition group popped up and campaigned vigorously against the project. These 2 failures cost us close to 1.5 years' time, during which we lost cruise ship traffic. My next concern is the design of the proposed alternatives. While maybe being cheaper, I don't believe will ever be approved by voting public due to their appearance and view on our waterfront. And if it can't pass, it's not a viable plan regardless of the cost. And the fact is still, it only has 2 gangways, 1 per ship. Additionally, it was designed for industrial ports, not destination stops like Ketchikan. Before we spend another dime, we better make sure that whatever proposal we come up with will pass in a bond vote. The next concern is that the previous mayor indicated that there would be a steering committee comprised of city, local business, and citizens to make recommendations and give feedback. I mentioned this to Mayor Severston a while back, and he seemed to be amenable to this. And I would still like to see that happen, to get feedback from all participants in the community. This is a big decision. It's a lot of work for the community. If we have a legitimate steering committee with the majority of concerned and affected parties involved, we can save a ton of grief, time, and money. We all know that we need 4 full-size berths by 2022 at the latest, and 2 by 2021, and we only have 1 marginal berth right now, on berth 3. We know developing berth 1 and 2 is absolute necessity, but we also know that it's going to take time and be fraught with obstacles. You've got the pinnacle that has to be removed. You've got the design concept that has to be approved. You've got people that are going to be for it. You're going to have people that are going to be against it. It's going to take time. You're going to have opposition. It's going to take time to work through that. I propose that the city renegotiate their lease on berth 4 immediately to get that developed by 2020. It's shovel ready and it's the cheapest, and it costs the city nothing as the lease is paid for with cruise vessel passenger funds. Not the head tax, but the passenger funds. Additionally, it is a non-recourse lease in that if the cruise industry fails, if somebody blows up a cruise ship in the channel or in the port of Seattle, the city is not any liability, owes nothing. Second, we develop and build out berths 1 and 2 as quickly as possible. Yes, my company has a retail store at berth 4, but if it was at berth 1, I would still say that's the way to go, because overall we cannot afford to lose cruise ship traffic. Taking quick, decisive action, we can convey to the industry that we will continue to be the best port in Alaska. I had the same concerns, 12 years ago or 13 years ago when we did this. If we do not develop our berths and do it in an orderly fashion as quickly as possible, we will lose cruise ship traffic. And we are in even worse shape economically, locally now than we were then. I don't know if you guys all agree with that. That's what I see. I have a year-round business, and there all the time. And each winter over the last 10 years, since the recession started in 2009, which still exists in Alaska today, has gotten a little bit slower and a little bit slower and a little bit slower. And I would frankly be better off to close my company down for the winter and then reopen in the summer. Obviously, I can't do that because we service to the locals. We have 50 employees that we need in the summertime. But the cruise ship industry has been good and the growth has been strong, but our business is tough and our economy is tough. And right now, it's the only thing we've got going economically. If we had a going mill like we had 30 years ago and a vibrant fishing industry that was growing, we would have other options on the table. We really don't right now. And I think any delay in developing our cruise ship berths to the fullest extent in an orderly fashion as quickly as possible is absolutely vital to our local economy. And, they can all be, berth 4 is shovel ready. It's ready to go right now. Again, I'm not saying that because I have a store down there. I'm saying that because we do not want to lose the ships, because if we do not convey to the cruise ship industry, they will find another place to go. They will develop other ports eventually anyway. But there's good growth projected for Alaska over the next 10 years, and we need to take advantage of that. Maybe someday we'll have some kind of other industry. We don't have to rely on the visitor industry completely, but I don't see that at this time. Maybe I'm not in the know of certain things, but that's what my perspective is. So I would urge you at this time not to approve that vote until you develop that professional services fee till, one, they complete their first contract, which is studying exactly what's going on with the current proposal, and two, getting a steering committee together so we can get some feedback in the community about things that need to be done and how it's affecting people. So when you do come up with a plan, it gets voted on and gets passed, and it's a plan that will accommodate everybody. And again, if that ends up being the articulating gangways, and then so be it. I'm just concerned that we're going to blow our opportunity to grow our cruise ship industry and keep our economy going. So that's what I'd say. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody has questions?
Thank you.
Nathaniel, Curl.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Nathaniel Curl. I'm counsel for K&B Real Estates. I'm just here on item 6A1 for the sale of surplus property. I'll just be here to answer any questions, although I expect that to the extent there are any questions, either Mr. Hilson or Mr. Seaver can answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak? Come on. Oh, no, it's you, right.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'm Rick Erickson. I reside at 4182 Valner Lane, and I'm here tonight to speak on the B&A contract. First and foremost, I don't want to have this written down as a brief statement, but I think we all know, as Chris duly noted, that certainly we're in a position where we need to grow the ports and in a expeditious type manner based on the fact that we know what's coming, obviously, in the B&A report that was provided to you and the passengers that are forthcoming into the state with the larger ships being built. But more briefly talked about as it relates to the B&A contract, unfortunately I was unable to attend the meeting held here on January 10th in which they presented some alternatives to Moffett and Nichols' plan as it relates to the expansion of berth 1 and 2. And having the opportunity to review B&A's alternative plans, it certainly brought a number of questions and concerns to it. Again, not that I'm opposed to it at all, but my only thought would be is before we approve a plan for $300,000 is maybe have the opportunity to have the public comment on it based on the fact that in past presentations that we've had here throughout the city, all the way back from 06 and with the development of berth 3 and the development of berth 4 and other things that we looked at in the Moffett-Nickel plan as it relates to whether or not covered shelters on the upland part of the plans. Viewshed was one of the bigger things that we had talked about as it relates to whether a covered shelter, a daily float, or even when the Visitors Bureau was built. I know there was a lot of pushback from some local residents as it relates to the viewshed on the port. And my only comment with that being said is that with B&A's alternative 2 plans that they've presented to us, is that my concern is if we go out, spend the $300 for the study, and then bring it to the public, it may be a moot point. It may be dead on arrival as it relates to any public feedback that we get as it relates to the viewshed. And I think in their proposed plan that they have for 2 buildings, not to mention the gangways that they're articulating gangways, which again are massive and hang up 30 to 40 feet, of which will be there sitting on the dock all summer with no place to store them. That would be my concern of having these guys go through all the study, give us all the answers and to the questions that we all may have. I understand there's that too, but my concern is the pushback that you would get from the community before we can get to that point. So, and again, I'm here, as we all know, I think the community knows that the cruise industry is a vital part of our economy. It's the mainstay of our economy. I wouldn't be standing here today if we didn't have the cruise industry. In fact, I wouldn't be living here today if we didn't have the cruise industry. I'm not sure what there would be here, but I think there is a sense of urgency within the community that we need to move forward with expanding our facilities as it relates to berth 1 and berth 4. I know there's communications going on with the dock owners there, but we need to really get off the dime and figure out what direction we want to go. And I think we've all been at the table. I guess my hope would be that we open it up to be able to communicate publicly what that is and what our plan is moving forward. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. And I just wanted to say,
Please state your name.
okay, my name is Jennifer Tavares. And I just wanted to say, while I know and appreciate all the work that Carl does for our city, and everyone does deserve a fair wage, myself and numerous people that I've spoken to do feel that this proposed raise is excessive, and especially considering there was just a raise last year. And I know that you guys, I appreciate all the work that you guys do too, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and then other people's input in as well.
Thank you. So that brings us down to the.
I'd like to speak too.
Did you sign up earlier?
Oh,
We have a sign up time before the meeting. But I'll allow. Go ahead. But you know, when you come, there's a process that you go through rather than. Go right ahead.
Kyle Heaton, 5109 South Tongass Highway. I'm also here to speak against the raise for Carl Amelon. It's an 11% raise increase, $25,000, 195 to 200 grand. He's technically doing KPU management and city management right now. I figure he's not working 80 hours a week. He's still working 40, but he's being paid for 80. If you figure that out over a 40-hour work week, that's a $12 an hour raise. The state of Alaska minimum wage is $9.58 an hour. So he's getting more than a minimum wage increase. And cost of living increase is usually 0.5% or 1.5% for cost of living wage increase. So that seems a little bit insane for an 11% wage increase. I myself am self-employed. I can't just give myself 11% wage increase. That seems a little insane. I have several people that I know that work for KPU. They're an extremely good organization to work for. But that seems out of line for the state of Alaska, the budget they just put out, and I think our budget needs to get more in line with that. And for a city employee to make $220,000 a year is insane. That's not right. The whole idea of working public service is that you have the guarantee of a job and benefits, not that you will be a millionaire within 4 years. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us down to consent. And if there are no objections, I would like to move 6A1. The authorized sale of the surplus real property located on 809 Water Street. And 7A6, contract number 1901, fire station number 2, overhead door replacement. Seeing no objections, would you please read the consent agenda? Oh, I need a motion first, right, guys?
I'll move to consent.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and second. Please read the items.
Approval of the minutes. Regular City Council meeting of February 7th, 2019. Budget transfer, replacement of City Manager, KPU General Manager's Office printer. Increase to the per diem rate. Liquor license renewal for the Arctic Bar. Ordinance number 19-1892, authorizing the sale of certain surplus real property located at 809 Water Street, Ketchikan, Alaska, to K&B Real Estate, LLC, and a construction easement and access agreement concerning the city's pedestrian promenade. Second reading. And award of contract 1901, fire station number 2, overhead doors replacement.
Here it comes. Please call the roll.
Kiefer.
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Flora.
Yes.
Gage.
Yes.
Coos.
So that passes. Brings us down to item 6A2, unfinished business, contract number 1902, consulting services for the lease of the Ketchikan Medical Center, ECG Management Consultants.
Is there a motion currently on the floor, Your Honor?
I believe there is, yes. So, again, we're asking a couple of council members, and I know that one of them is very adamant about her feelings in this particular thing, and we do have a few years to get to this, but I think that there is a need for some discussion in regards to this item. And I'm glad Billy and Russ and the other individuals are still here. One of the reasons why the city of Ketchikan has started this discussion is because of the public comments in regards to the care or billing at Peace Health, and they come to the city of Ketchikan. We're the owner of the facility, so I think that the public believes that we have an option for input. The reality of it is our lease agreement is just a building lease. That's it. So having heard numerous, and I think you can go back on the records, but numerous individuals speak about their concerns, their care, or their billing, and having had discussions in the past with Peace Health and their actuaries, I guess it's in an interest of whether there is an option for moving this from a land lease to some kind of an operating lease. And within that operation lease, because we have $1 million facility out there that we're leasing for $1 a month or whatever it may be. And the original intent, I think, when we were with the sisters, was if we didn't charge the rent or the lease, then that didn't have to be passed on to the community. We would use our own resources in order to keep those prices and services for a reasonable cost to the community. Well, here we are, I don't know, almost 100 years later, and there are some concerns, and I think that the lease needs to be updated. Now, whether we need to have, this large of a contractor do that, it's not my intention, and it's up to, I'm not speaking for the council, that I'm going to replace Peace Health. That's not my intention. But there has been enough concern, and I think there's been, a lacking in public response from Peace Health. From what I know, there haven't been any public forums or anything to try to address those things. It puts the council in a tough position, being the landowner. And there's been an outcry to do something. And so when we first went down this road, well, how do you do that? We're going to deal with Peace Health, and I'll assure you we'll be dealing with Peace Health legal counsel, numerous ones. And we don't have the expertise. We really don't. To know, I guess, what our options are. There may be, things that we can do, but there may be a lot of things we can't do. But we just don't know that. We've reached out to Peace Health a number of times in regards to these issues, and I don't think there was a satisfactory answer. Now, those individuals come to this public meeting and make those statements. I don't know what happens at the board meetings, because they're held at Peace Health, and when I've gone to them, they're in a small room upstairs, and I don't see a lot of public there. The voices, I think maybe they need to get out and put it in the Ketchikan Gateway Borough building and let the public come talk to them. I'd much rather them go talk to them than me, because I can't. I'm not in the healthcare business, but we have a responsibility. I'm willing to put this off and until we have a full council to talk about it. But I'm concerned that if we do nothing and we just come back with a building lease, we haven't, I think, addressed some of the concerns that the community has brought to us. I understand that, the people that come before us, sometimes it's not necessarily the majority, it's the vocal minority. But when you're talking healthcare issues, it's very personal to them. It involves themselves or loved ones, and it sometimes involves those that they've lost. So I'd like to respond to that somehow. Maybe this isn't the way, but we've started the conversation. I would like until the other council members are here, and I guess I'd like at this point to hear from the other council members if they have similar issues.
Aaron?
Yes.
Well, when I saw the two options for a motion, I didn't realize we had an option for the alternate motion. Maybe my understanding has been wrong all this time, but I thought that we had to identify healthcare strengths and challenges before we could even go out for an RFP. And we don't have the manpower or the know-how to do that. So we needed consultants to go and do that because we didn't know how.
Right.
And we didn't want to just leave that on Peace Health's shoulders because that could obviously be, that could be tweaked. It could come out biased. We needed a third-party consulting firm to go out and do that. So, in my opinion, we don't have two options tonight.
Correct. I understand.
Okay.
I'm just answering the questions that were raised during public comment. And I think before we go further, Carl, would you kind of explain where we're at right now with this and some of the offers that have been made?
Last fall, legal counsel for Peace Health contacted my office and indicated their desire to commence negotiations for a new lease. I brought that issue to council. We reviewed it in executive session. It was done at or about the time when the council was getting a lot of feedback from the council relative to billing issues at the hospital. And the direction that we discussed was, rather than just entertaining a simple building lease, we might be better off reviewing what Peace Health is providing to this community and assess that against what other providers are doing in other Alaska communities and down in the Pacific Northwest. Neither I nor my staff have the expertise to conduct that kind of review. We also talked about doing significant public outreach to find out what are the concerns relative to health care in this community as it relates to Peace Health. Like many council members, my office fields numerous concerns from constituents in Ketchikan regarding their experiences with Peace Health. By doing that type of public outreach and doing that type of assessment of what Peace Health is providing, that was intended to serve as a basis then to open up a discussion with Peace Health relative to the lease of the hospital and what the council as representatives of the community might like to see Peace Health change, what they like, what Peace Health is doing, and formulate that as a basis of discussions relative to the lease. The other aspect that was discussed, historically, council had a representative on the Peace Health Community Health Board. It wasn't full membership in that. There were oftentimes council representatives were excluded from executive sessions and other issues if it was deemed they had a potential conflict. That issue was addressed relative to an agreement that was reached with the city and Peace Health, whereby the city manager by position now serves on that board. But other than my representation on the board, other than when the lease comes up for renewal, there really isn't a mechanism for an ongoing dialogue between the city as owner of the facilities and Peace Health. And there was discussion about maybe building in a mechanism where we could strengthen the communication process through the lease agreement. So that's an entirely different approach than what we've done historically, as you outlined, where $1 a year we give them the facility, and Peace Health is pretty much left to its own devices to provide health care in the community. As I stated earlier, neither I nor my staff are really in a position to do that assessment, do that appraisal of what Peace Health does in Ketchikan, and then how does that compare to other communities in Alaska or comparable size communities in the Pacific Northwest. So once the council gave us that direction, we've spent considerable amount of time trying to identify a firm that had the capabilities to do what we were looking for. Through that process, issues of conflict of interest were brought up. There are a limited number of companies that do this type of work, and in all likelihood, at least in the Pacific Northwest, they've probably done business for all the healthcare providers. And you're not going to find anybody, or it would be difficult to find any company that hadn't worked for Peace Health or a potential alternative provider were we ever to get to that stage. So we've proposed language to staff or to council within the agreement where we can try to address the conflict of interest issue. But I would agree with Mayor Severson. I think you're at a point where you either move ahead with the ECG contract. Option 2 would be direct us to scrap that, go out with an RFP for a new provider, and see what we come up with. Or if you feel it would be something that would be constructive, as Mr. Tatsuda said, the other option is to get together with the Community Health Board and what other representation Peace Health might want to bring, and have a discussion of the concerns that we've talked about tonight, and consider maybe an alternative approach. But I think it's one of those three courses of actions that you really have to decide. I don't think there's much more we can do with the ECG contract. Either move ahead or you don't.
Yeah, Callan.
First of all, I want to thank Bill for coming and the other members of the board for coming. But I also want to make it perfectly clear that I have the utmost respect for the lifelong community members who work at the Ketchikan Hospital and those who do an admirable job within their station. But I also understand that there's a multitude of individuals from whom Peace Health has done an outstanding job and who would otherwise not be here for those services, including myself. However, I think a lot has changed since 1995, and not so much for the betterment of the community, and maybe there's a silo. I think we can all agree that I speak for the minority in the fact that there are a lot of people that are privileged to having wonderful health care provided to them. But there's a number of people that I have received letters from, phone calls from, who have not. I've witnessed the treatment in the emergency room for mental health patients. And I can only say that one of the reasons that I put my 2 cents in to have this done is because of the fact, not necessarily the board, but I've been on the city council now this will be my 4th year. We've been talking about this for 3 years. The board's, no disrespect, but the hospital board is now showing up at the door. And we need to understand that health care should not be for the privileged. And those who cannot speak for themselves should not have to go to the emergency room and be treated based on what that person in the emergency room says. And one of the things that really hit me was, the emergency room is run by a different company. The labs are now run by a different company. Those jobs have been sent away. I don't care who runs them. Peace Health owns them. They're responsible for every person that walks in that door. I have heard from people who have bills that there is no way in this lifetime they'll ever pay. I don't know where the foundation comes in on that. I don't see it as a transparent entity, and I show no disrespect. I think that they do a wonderful job, but I think there could be more transparency in that aspect. I get that this is a lot of money. I totally get that. The only other solution I can suggest is that we make a committee, and everybody hates committees, but you have a committee of multitudes, and I don't mean just certain people in the city and certain people in the community that fit someone's mold to come up with a plan that fits everybody. Because we have a crisis in mental health. Bottom line, we have people on the street with mental health issues. They're going in and out. We have people being sent to API, being returned, who are not getting connected with services. We've had them show up at these meetings, and nobody knows how to deal. And those are the people I speak for. And I speak for myself on multiple. I mean, it's a tough world when you walk in and people prejudge you when you go to the doctor's office. I have a disability. I don't take pain medicine. I look for other solutions. I have a lot of other solutions that don't involve pain medicine. But when you do have something going on and you go in and have people say, they just assume you're a drug seeker and actually you're having an allergic reaction, and you know you're having an allergic reaction, and then they finally have to pump you full of a bunch of medication. But anyway, bottom line is that's why we're here. That's why this is where we're at. And no disrespect to the board, but we have, I believe the board for the hospital has been in a silo for a long time, and you obviously are not hearing from the people who are not getting services the way they should be getting services.
Thank you. Yes.
I want to thank the board members for coming tonight. Pardon me. I think it's really healthy that the hospital board and council and management have some discussions. There's obviously a perception problem. This council did not solicit the responses that we get from the public, whether they be whether they be positive or negative. We listened to what people brought to us. It is a decidedly different viewpoint than as represented by the hospital board. That would probably bear further discussion to see if the council and the board can get on the same page. In my time on the council, I've come to learn that there is no such thing as an inexpensive consultancy. It is a lot of money. We don't take it lightly. Mechanisms that this council has already taken, if we go forward with ECG, has already found a way to knock 25% out of that. No one's talked about that tonight. Because of concerns voiced at this table at previous meetings, we found a way to find $55,000 in savings. Is it a conflict of interest? Well, it might be. If we have to worry about our present provider having a conflict of interest with a survey of what this community thinks of how they're performing, then we have a far deeper problem. $150,000, $200,000, whatever the figure ends up being, it's not the complete consultancy. There would be more money. The citizens of this town have obligated themselves to debt that I believe will expire in 2043. Is that right, Mr. Newell? The hospital bond? 2043? Is that how long we're paying on the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the people, the residents of the city of Ketchikan, this community, deserve a voice. $200,000, whatever that fee ends up being, we're talking about a return on investment in what this council, what we decide to invest in this consultant, if at all, to get the greatest return on that facility that we improved and the equipment that we put in it. I agree with the mayor. Once again, we don't have a full house on the council. This probably certainly bears consideration by the full council. I think it's an excellent idea that there be conversations between the board and this body, and to see if we can get on the same page and find the best solution. Thank you.
Beth. So what we have before us, the current motion states that the City Council authorizes the City Manager into a contract number 1902 Consulting Services for the lease of the Ketchikan Medical Center between the City of Ketchikan and ECG Management Consultant, amount not to exceed $200,000. Approve funding from the Public Health Department 219 Healthcare Operations Management and Consulting Service account number 640.04, and direct the City Manager to execute the contract documents on behalf of the City Council. That's the motion that's on the table.
Your Honor,
Yes.
can we hold off on it, or
We may. It's our option.
and then meet with them, or?
Whatever we choose. Again, this contract expires, what is the date, 2/22?
23.
23. So we do have some time, but we know that we want to get out in front of this because of the time it takes to get this kind of stuff put together. I'd rather have it done before the old one expires. So if there's an interest, I guess I would be looking for a motion to defer for further conversations. And then if there's an interest in meeting, further conversations with the board.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I move to defer and move that there be a work session with the hospital board and the city council.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Mark, you have any discussion on it?
No, sir.
Do we have a time frame for that? I don't want to see this go into the summer and then go into the fall and then go into 2040.
How about the next 30 days?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people involved that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your Honor?
Yes. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, Bob, I agree with the fact we need to probably defer this so that we can have the other council members there, but as part of the discussion, I also think that we should somehow or other maybe get together with the hospital board so that they understand what kind of pressure is being put on us and what the public's saying, because it still is a two-way street, and we need to work together to accomplish it. I also, in saying that, believe that this contract that we have for leasing the hospital is probably, 40 or 50 years old, except for maybe one or two changed, and it needs to be modernized, and it's probably going to have to be modernized by somebody other than our, no due disregard or disrespect for him, but it's a different type of contract, and we need somebody that understands it as we do it. But I think we do have a little, we deal with it, but we can't let it go too long.
Thank you, Dick. I think the end of the other part of the motion was that the hospital board and the council get together to talk about this issue. Any other comments?
Absolutely.
Hearing none, please call the roll on defer.
Isom.
Yes.
Flora.
Yes.
Gage.
Yes.
Coos.
Yes.
Kiefer.
Yes.
That passes. Moves us on into new business. Item A, we have a 2018 Ketchikan Library Annual Report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm Pat Tully. I'm Director of the Ketchikan Public Library, and I'm here to report on the implementation of our strategic plan during 2018. And I know that the annual report is in your packet, so I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. Our first strategic goal is to make the library a welcoming, beautiful, and inviting place. So early last year, local artist Larry Jackson designed and created a memorial bench with funds donated in memory of Margie and Raymond Apodaca. Work was also done on our landscaping with 3 new weeping cedar trees paid for by the Friends of the Ketchikan Public Library and some much-needed maintenance work outside. Our second strategic goal is to serve the Wesleyan community. So in 2018, we began 3 new program series that have been really successful, and they're continuing in 2019. One is the Children's Community Garden Program Series, which started last March with a Starting Seeds program and continued through early November. Garden programs are going to start up again this March, and we're going to do planting in early May. The Fellowship of the Pen Writer Support Series also started early last year. Activities included a concert and talk by the Ratfish Wranglers on songwriting, the October Geek Fest celebration of fan fiction, and National Novel Writing Month activities in November. Fellowship of the Pen activities started up again this month with regular write-in sessions for aspiring writers. And the Teen Advisory Group developed a program series called Next Real Life that started in September and will continue through May. The series gives teens useful information and skills to be successful in whatever path they take after graduation. This spring, there will be programs on personal budgeting, basic home maintenance, and adjusting to college life. Our third strategic goal is to engage with the community. And this past year, Rebecca Fama, who was outreach librarian until the end of August, began developing programming for seniors. One activity was a weekly reading of the book A Dog's Purpose at Rendezvous Senior Day Center. We continued this through the fall, and it culminated in a screening of the film A Dog's Purpose in December. The new outreach librarian, Rebecca Brown, came on board in January of 2019, and she has done wonderful work connecting with seniors, the homebound, and the Ketchikan Correctional Center. The Aarp Tax Aid Program ran last year from February through mid-April with trained volunteers at the library helping people with their tax returns. AARP is running this same program again this year, and it's one of the most popular activities that's held at the library. In 2018, the library partnered with other Alaska public libraries on a grant to improve our services to the local business community. As part of that grant, we have made available the online service lynda.com, a popular database of professional instructional videos focusing on business and technology topics. And our fourth and final strategic goal is to make the library a growing, vibrant organization. Highlights include the library conducted its annual inventory last February and reorganized storage and workspaces to improve efficiency. This year's inventory is continuing through the end of tomorrow. So the library is closed. We will reopen on Saturday, and it's going very well so far. This past August, the Friends of the Library purchased and the city building maintenance installed 20 acoustical panels in the library's large meeting room, which greatly improved the sound quality of the room. This year, the Friends have approved funding for another 10 acoustical panels to be installed in the small meeting room. So, as I said before, these are just a few of the many things the library has done this past year. We have a link to the full annual report on the library's website in the About Us section, and we'll have copies available in the library as well. Finally, I'd like to thank the council and everybody in the city for your support of the library and our work for the people of Ketchikan. The help we receive from you, from our Friends organization, and from other local organizations, businesses, and individuals is invaluable, and we greatly appreciate it. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us down to item 3, resolution number 192725, approving loan 481151 and 481201 to the city by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation as authorized by ordinance number 1867, approving forms of the loan agreement affirming the city's junior lien pledge of revenue of the municipal wastewater utility to secure payment of the loans.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Did we move 7A2 to the consent agenda and I missed it?
Oh, we did. Excuse me.
Oh, so we did approve that already?
No, we're going to do that one. My apologies. Item 219, Community and Humanitarian Service Grant Funding Agreement. We have the first motion regard.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I move the city. I'm sorry. I move the City Council direct the City Manager to enter into the 2019 funding agreements with those organizations and for those dollar amounts as recommended by the Community Grant Committee in the amount of $299,990 and authorize funding from the City Council's 2019 Community Grant Program Contract Purchase Services Account number 610-02.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Hey.
Yeah, that was another interesting process. We actually saved the city, what, $10 there or $100. Didn't spend all the money. I thought it was a good process, and people seemed to be, the groups seemed to be satisfied. Once again, I think the high point for all of us in the community was hearing what these different groups do. Almost all of them doing things that we probably couldn't provide elsewhere in this community, yet are vastly, desperately needed. So it was good to hear that again.
I just have one question, though, because when I was reading on the D8, is it D8 or D6? Maybe I need glasses now. D6 on the operating budget changes for 2019, the grant award account decreased by $77,000 or by 20.4% due to changes for funding homeless and other humanitarian programs beginning in 2018. Funding for homeless and other humanitarian programs were funded through the proceeds of the newly enacted marijuana sales tax. My question is that I don't remember us, like, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding was that Councilmember Zingy wanted to move that so we were not having to put a new entity into the grant to take money, that would take money from the other entities that also really counted on those funds because they all do great things. And so I'm just, it kind of bothered me that, like, we're not capping the funds for the grants. We had that you know what I'm talking, remember that conversation, Dave? But just this statement kind of implies that we're taking that $77,000 out of the grant, and because we don't have those three entities in there anymore. And maybe I'm just misunderstanding that, but
that's how we proposed the budget. That's how the council adopted the budget. If you want to maintain the level of funding for the community grant agencies, excluding
the three,
the three, that's solely council prerogative. But we proposed it the way we did. Council adopted it. But you certainly can amend it if you're so inclined. Then, if you do that, then you're going to have to direct us how you want that additional money dispersed through the people who applied.
So, I think, what we were doing is they were already into the community agency grant program and being funded as such, but since we ended up with a new funding source, the thought was to move them out, and so the amount that we had been funding historically was the $77,000. So that's why we moved it into an appropriation that tied itself to the marijuana tax.
So I guess my point would be, considering everything that's coming down the pipe, these agencies kind of do things that we can't do, and they support, their services support so many different aspects, from seniors to the arts. And I know that putting that $77,000 back in, maybe not but you could actually, there might be another entity out there if you have that extra funding that may actually be a benefit to the community that could apply for, or at some point, a lot of these agencies, their costs do go up. So there's that cushion. I don't know if it means that we have to give them the full, all of it in the pot, but keeping that in the pot so that if something comes down the road, there's funding for it. Be it even like for the music on the dock, or different projects, art projects, or senior projects, or there's that we could use that money for.
Well, at this particular point, it's not budgeted for.
No, but I'm just saying for like
it's something for further conversation.
I think that's something we probably should, since there is some concern on the council. I think it kind of slid through in the budget process, and maybe folks weren't paying as close attention to them as they should have. But I think that's something you're right. We need to discuss for next year. I think for this year, I'm not interested in reopening the process this year.
No. I mean for down the road.
I think obviously in advance of next year's budget deliberation, we should discuss that.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, probably a question and a comment, but anyway, comment is on what we were just discussing. I know very clearly we said if we didn't use all that money that we left for the homeless and the other one from the marijuana tax, that we were not going to use it just to feed the pot. It stays there, and that didn't mean that they got everything they wanted either. That's a recommendation, but we said that it wasn't there to be all used. The other thing I wanted to ask the question, maybe the members of the committee, is I noticed they elected not to fund anything in the Small Business Administration. Is there a reason for that? Like they're not operating or what?
Pretty much.
They're not. They don't have anyone in the office again, Dick.
Okay, that answers my question then.
We basically said again, kind of like you said in the past, well, if you can figure out a way to actually have someone operating the local office, we'll seriously consider it. But it didn't sound like that was going to be happening this time, so the gentleman spoke to us.
The previous year he had promised and never delivered. And I know of several people who applied, but I don't know if it's because the criteria was really up there. You had to have a master's, and it was, yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Kiefer.
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Flora.
Yes.
Gage.
Yes.
Coos. Coos.
Yes.
Thank you, Dick. We have a second motion.
For the amendment?
No, not an amendment, but the recommended motion number 2 dealing.
Oh, right.
How are we going to deal with it?
So, okay, I move the City Council direct the City Manager to enter into the 2019 Community Agency funding agreements with First City Homeless Services and Ketchikan Homeless Shelter as determined appropriate by the City Council.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Dave.
Well, the three groups have requested a total of 114,000. And Carl, we have 98,000. Or do you want to explain what's going on here?
We budgeted 98,000, trying to factor in a small percentage of growth. What we budgeted for the marijuana sales tax, we estimated at the beginning this year we'd have $55,000 in reserves. We're estimating we're going to take in another $171,000 through the year, and what we budgeted was the $98,000 going out. So you have additional funds within that.
Has the other 50,000 been spoken for anywhere else in the budget, or is it just okay? I guess, Your Honor, then I would move that we budget for 114,000. Is that cover everything?
That's the amount.
The amount that we're Second.
Second. Discussion. So, I guess one of the things I would ask, and the needs are going to get larger and larger, of course, but I remember years ago when we first started this process, the monies that we were using were for programs. And it seems like we're moving into where we're doing infrastructure. And I don't know if that's the place we want to go. We can't be the do-all, fix-all for these projects. And I noticed that in some of this, we've been, about 54% of the funding for these projects and programs. And there's nothing changed over many, many years. So I don't know if there is an active process where they try to get more people involved, more money from somewhere else, writing for grants, whatever they do. Because I don't think we have an exhaustible resource that we can continue to try to take care of their infrastructure. Some of these buildings are very, very old and they have some huge needs. And this one's a little bit tougher because the majority of its funding comes from the city. The one that was in question years ago, a lot of money come from other state agencies, and we just didn't feel it was correct to do windows and infrastructure in a building. That's not what our funds were pointed at. And so I just want to hear or have consideration in regards to whether we are truly just doing programs and helping programs out in their need, or if we're going to start working on the infrastructure of whoever applies.
Your Honor.
Yes.
One of the things I think with the marijuana tax, with the fact that it's, and no disrespect to the organizations that work with the homeless and PATH, but and the inebriation problem. Excuse me. I'm wondering about whether or not we, in the future, not necessarily tonight, but take a percentage of that funding from the tax and put it aside and build it up, so that we can, down the road, look at funding a larger project, such as, like Juneau's got their Housing First project. They are now working on phase 2 of that project, and it has been a 8-year collaboration between all the entities within the community and the city of Juneau. So I'm just wondering, for instance, Seattle, Washington State, they take a 0.001% of their property tax. It's been going into a fund to help with housing for the homeless. So, and I haven't really researched the whole project, but I'm just thinking, if we think ahead of the box, these are the things that these 3 entities are heading towards. And with the economic issues in the state, I'm sure we're going to see more of that. So I don't know if that's something that anybody's interested in looking at, or how that would work. Putting money into a fund that would eventually maybe assist in a larger project.
That's something we could definitely talk about in the future. Yes.
Well, on some level, I agree with your concerns about the making sure that we're funding programs and not other things. The problem is even in the grant world, we are, even in this particular area, which is a hot grant area, and there's a fair amount of money out there. And grants pay for programs; they don't pay for infrastructure. They don't pay for staff. And for some of the issues we're dealing with here, that's the biggest cost. Is having someone there for a warming shelter, having someone there, and so I don't want to get in a situation where we're saying, no, we're not going to fund that at all, because there may be a really reasonable reason to do that. But you also mentioned probably the 1,000-pound elephant in the room is you are looking at, if we carry this out to its logical conclusion, we are going to need more different perhaps larger facilities in town to deal with some of these issues. And where does that money come from? What is the state, but based on the most recent budget, perhaps not. So I think we need to be flexible enough that if there is a need and we feel that we can reasonably meet some of that need, we should need to be able to do that.
Anybody else? Please call the roll.
Coos?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Flora?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Kiefer?
Yes.
That motion passes. Brings us on to item 3 now. Thank you very much. Resolution number 192725, approving loans number 481151 and 481201 to the city by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, as authorized by ordinance number 1867, approving forms of the loan agreement, affirming the city's junior lien pledge of revenue of the municipal wastewater utility to secure payment of the loans.
We still have to have a motion after all that?
I think maybe.
You only had to read it twice.
We can pretty well cover it. Okay, where's the... Okay. Your Honor, I move the City Council approve resolution number 19-2725, approving loan numbers 481151 and 481201 to the city by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, as authorized by ordinance number 18-1867, approving forms of the loan agreements, affirming the city's junior lien pledge of revenue of the municipal wastewater utility to secure payment of the loans, and establishing an effective date.
Second.
Then moving second. Carl? Want to speak to it at all?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory, Mr. Mayor. Bob, do you want to?
Not that question. Okay. Anybody else? Please call the roll.
Gage?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Kiefer?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Flora?
Yes.
Wait, I had one question.
Thank you very much. That brings us down to the next item.
I think we had a request to delay that until we had our executive session. Was that the case, Carol?
That's correct.
Okay, so we will move that into executive session and come out and address it afterwards. Brings us to item 5, increase the annual compensation of the city manager, KPU general manager. I have a motion.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Move the City Council increase annual compensation of the city manager, KPU manager from $1,995,578 to $220,000 effective January 1st, 2019.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moving second. Mark.
Okay. So some additional data as we discuss this so that other folks who have genuine concerns, understandably so, can understand. So since the positions were combined in 1999, 35% of that time, the manager has received no compensation increase, including no cost of living increase, while general government and KPU folks got their COLA. In that same time, 4 administrative positions have been eliminated. I'm going to guess over the 20 years, the volume of work has stayed the same or increased. And in the first year of that, there was $100,000 savings. So the staff reduction on the KPU side and the administrative side, once the consolidation occurred, was actually a 75% reduction in the administrative staff. So as we're looking at this, let's hopefully look at the entire equation.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just a comment, because I see what's on Facebook too, and personal letters to the council We get them. We hear you. I don't think you can compare governor's salaries to a city manager's salary. That's just one of the things I saw someone focused on Facebook. But I support this increase.
You? Yes.
I'm going to try a whack at this just because. And I'm going to couch this by saying this is not a reflection upon the job the city manager is doing. I wasn't at the executive session you guys had last week, but I'm sure the results were fairly positive. I know my part, what I said was very, really positive. I just think at this time, 12.5% is a chunk, and we're looking at increasing other city employees, things, assuming this compensation study comes out. And I guess right now I'm just not quite there at 12.5%. So I'm going to make a motion to increase the compensation from $195,578 to $205,328. And I hope my numbers are correct. They may not be. I'm doing the pencil here. That would be an increase of $9,750, a 5% increase. So I toss that out.
You're offering an amendment.
Yes, an amendment, yes.
Nick?
I'll second it.
So you second it.
Yes.
You want to speak to it?
Well, I believe the manager is doing a good job, but I think the amount that was is more than I can support, and I think what Mr. is a reasonable amount.
Okay. Anybody else? So, just so the public knows, we went through an evaluation of Carl. We sat in an executive session, discussed his evaluation, and within that we also talked about compensation comparisons and other items. And so that's where this motion comes from. Is that what? So, what? Yes.
So can we? So how many years was it that there was no compensation? Just for the record. 7 years that he went.
7 out of 20, 35% of that 20-year span.
So presently we have an amendment to, what was the number, Dave?
205,328. Like I said, I hope I got my numbers right. If for some reason that doesn't come out to 5%, I'm going to change it.
Okay.
Anyone got a map?
Discussion?
205,328. 328. That would be an increase of $9,750 over the $195,578 that he was originally.
You heard the motion? No other comments? Please call the roll.
Flora?
So are we calling it on the amendment?
This is on the amendment.
Okay, I'm just over.
This is on
the amendment to change.
The 5%.
Yes.
Kiefer?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
That passes.
Who's going to pass?
5-0. Moves us on. Question, is that retroactive to?
The first, yeah.
That was on the amendment?
Right.
That
So
was
now
on the
we need
amendment.
to-
Now you got to do this.
So now we should, now we should vote on the main motion, is that right?
As amended.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I would request a recess.
All right. We'll stand in recess.
Benefit retirement system as determined appropriate by the council.
Carl.
Is there a second?
Here's a second. My bad.
Mr. Mayor, this was a request that we received from Tracy Metler of the Firefighters Union. I think he's here tonight if you want to hear from him.
Sure. Tracy, do you want to come up and speak to it a little bit?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk, members of the council, my name is Tracy Metler. I reside at 1306 Water Street. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Real quick, what we're asking for is legislative support for a return to a defined benefit retirement plan at the state level. As you all know, in 2006, legislation was passed that changed the state's retirement plans from DB to a defined contribution plan. And we're asking for your support to change it back. Why do we want to change it back? Because DB plans are good for workers and they're good for families. They're better than DC plans. I've been an employee at the fire department. Oh, and by the way, for the record, I am speaking this evening. I know I'm wearing the uniform, but I'm speaking on behalf of the union this evening. The Ketchikan professional firefighters and the Alaska professional firefighters have worked since 2006 against some pretty strong headwinds to come up with legislation that would be acceptable to folks and sustainable. And we think we're just about there. When I was hired, I was hired in 2003, I guess. I've seen things lately, so I've been doing this 16 years. In the last few years, we've seen things that we haven't seen before in the realm of hiring by other fire departments. For instance, a city like Seattle, if they have 40 or 50 job openings, they'll put the job announcement out. They'll get 1,000 or 2,000 applicants. They'll vet those applicants. They will cut it down to 200 or 300. They'll test those folks. They'll come down to their final list and they'll hire them. Then they'll put them into the probationary process, and that can take a year, six months or a year. Once they're trained how they want them, because they don't want them how we want them, they want them how they want them. Once they get them trained to their level, then they'll look at putting them through a paramedic school or something like that. So they're looking at a minimum of a year to 2 years training brand new people. That's what they did then. And what they do now is if they need 40 or 50 people, they put ads out where everybody else puts ads out, and they're fishing for folks who are already trained, folks who are already paramedics, folks who already have 5-10 years on the job. The new thing is lateral transfers. And so that's one of the issues that you would face, I guess, as a municipality and cities throughout the state are facing, is the difficulty in recruiting and retaining folks, primarily because of the lack of a DB plan in retirement. You're not competing on a level playing field with Washington, Oregon, California, Montana, Idaho, Utah. These states all offer defined benefit plans, and we are unable to compete in the job market with those folks. We just can't come up with a package that they can come up with. So what keeps me here? Well, I love it here. And I'm a Tier 2 PERS worker. I'm here until I retire. I'll work probably 25 years. What's it going to cost the city to switch back with the proposed legislation? There is no increase to the current 22% rate in the as far as PERS goes to switch back to a DB plan. The difference in the proposed DB plan and the ones tiers 1, 2, 3, it's a pretty close match to tier 3, except for it doesn't offer health insurance. So obviously there's a cost savings to the state and to the municipalities there. So I guess that's the carrot for you folks, is the ability to level the playing field with regard to recruitment and retention. The cost to this thing, the state's actuary, I put it in the pack, I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, but they were able to show a projected cost over 5 years to go back to DB at $7.5 million. And the state troopers, I had their letter in there also, they put the cost at training the troopers they've lost, not to retirement, but to resignation to go to outside agencies, at $12.7 million over the last 3 years. And the troopers make up 15% of public safety in the state of Alaska. So I can't extrapolate that number out to what the real cost is. I know the state is saving money on the front end, but the municipalities are picking up the bill with training new folks over and over. And I can't speak to the experience that the police department here has had. Anecdotally, they've lost folks not to retirement necessarily, but to resignations to outside departments. I know we had one of our guys recently went to Juneau for a $25,000 signing bonus. That's what other municipalities are doing to get firefighter paramedics now. Again, police, I can't speak to that, but I hear that they come here, we hire them, we send them to the certificate to the police academy, they get trained, they come back, they work 2 or 3 years, and they get pushed by somebody else. I'm guessing states with the DB plan. So I hope you'll join us. Also in your packet are letters from municipal leaders and fire and police chiefs from around the state. I hope you'll join them in supporting this legislation to return to DB. That's all I got.
So
Yes,
I just returned this morning from Juneau, and we had the conference of mayors at the Alaska Municipal League, and public safety was one of the topics in regards to what was going on. We had a number of speakers. The chief from Juneau, they have 59 officers, they're down 6, but they have an officer leaving about every 4.4 years. He says it's not any one thing. A lot of mayors shared the same concerns about the reason why they went from defined benefit to defined contributions, because it was an unfunded liability. The present plan, PERS and TERS both, are upside down. They're billions of dollars in debt. And they had some concerns about the state's ability to continue to manage those programs. Plus, when you go back in on a defined benefit plan, you end up with the PERS termination clause again. And so even if you attracted these officers because of the retirement plan and your pay didn't add up, or somebody was signing bonuses and they left, we may be required to continue to pay that until they retire. And the unfunded part of this is, again, it's similar to what is in PERS, where PERS has the top 3 years. I think this Tier 5 has 5.
I believe it would be 5 years, yes.
Whereas in an IBW plan, it's the hours you work per year and what you pay in, and it's an accumulated year to year. There's no top 3. So what you pay into the plan is what you get out of the plan. And that's one of the problems with unfunded liabilities in TERS and PERS. A lot of mayors didn't understand why they'd go back to a broken system. And that's the comments that were received at AML. Everybody, of course, would like to fully support their police and fire, but it's getting harder and harder in today's. Everybody's poaching from everybody else. That's just the way it's going right now. They don't like to do it, but that's the reality of what's going on in the state of Alaska. So I guess that's the comments I had to throw in there. Of course, a firefighter is about $80,000 to train this guy, do all the recruiting and everything else. And then if you lose them down the line, or if you don't put language in to keep them, you're probably, that's money that you're throwing down the drain to train them for somebody else. So I guess I'm not sure where we want to go with this at this particular point in time, and I don't know where it's going to go with legislation. And that's what I heard.
Mr. Mayor, I wrote that letter prior to Governor Dunleavy's budget.
I understand.
So, Your Honor, so is this a request to write a letter in support?
Resolution, letter from Department Head's Manager's Office, anything we can get at this point.
And this is what they consider a Tier 5. They want to put in legislation for that. Given the present budgets with the state, the likelihood of something like this moving forward is probably it's going to be a tough uphill fight. We know that.
It has been.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, the other comment that I would offer, let me say first, I agree with the problem as Tracy's outlined it. And, I think there are some systemic problems with going from a defined benefit to a defined contribution plan, but that's a discussion for another day. Until we get our arms around Governor Dunleavy's budget, we're probably going to be sending other letters, other resolutions on items that may be more material to our immediate concerns. And it's not that I don't support what Tracy's trying to do, but I'd like to wait a while and see how things are playing out in Juneau in terms of the impacts of the governor's budget, not only on the city, but the borough and the community as a whole. I think we may have bigger battles than this to wage, and it might be better just to defer this for a while. That would be my recommendation to the council.
I believe I got that same recommendation from the Senate Finance Chairman. Wait and see what's going to happen. Don't stick yourself out there yet. It's going to be a process. So what is there a consensus?
I think we should send a letter.
I don't see it as a harm in sending
Yeah.
a letter. I don't see it as a particular harm. My suggestion would be to send a letter of support.
Okay. We have, what am I going to need here tonight? At least 4 hands, right? We send a letter. Here's 1. Here's 2.
Dick, what's yours?
We don't have enough even with Dick, right? So at this point, we will defer until a later date.
Yeah, I'd like to revisit it again later. I support it, but I have to agree with Carl. I think there might be a few things that are just more immediate, and with the headwinds that they've already faced, I don't see that getting less.
Yeah, Bob, this is Dick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob. Yeah, sorry, I put that on mute so I wouldn't make any noise, but I know, I think I just heard you say you were going to defer it, and that's fine with me, but I'm reluctant to put employees into the state retirement system because to me it's just a future headache for everybody. So we'll see where it goes.
Thank you for your comments, Dick. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right. That brings us down to Ketchikan Public Utilities B1 Resolution number 192726, approving loan numbers 481081 and 481191 to the city by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation as authorized by ordinance number 1866, approving forms of the loan agreement affirming the city junior lien pledge of revenues of Ketchikan Public Utilities to secure the payment of the loan.
Well, that sounds familiar, Your Honor.
It does.
Let's get another way. I move the City Council approve resolution number 192726, which approving loan numbers 481081 and 481191 with the city by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation as authorized by ordinance number 1866, approving forms of the loan agreements affirming the city's junior lien pledge of revenue of Ketchikan Public Utilities to secure payment of the loans and establishing an effective date.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Well, I'm having serious stage movement.
So just for the general public, this is to make some improvements to Schoenbar Road. We've had a number of water main issues over there. And then also to work, I think, on the meter program a little bit. Correct? And it's similar in the wastewater one that we did. Any comment? Please call the roll.
Kaiser?
Sure.
Isom?
Yes.
Flora?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
That passes. Moves us on. There's no vouchers at this particular point in time. Brings us to the manager's report. Carl, what do you have for us?
Just a couple, Mr. Mayor. I did want to note that we had a report on the insurance recovery of that incident of imposter fraud that we advised the council of early last year. So that was a good thing. As I alluded to earlier, we are in the process of trying to assess the impacts of Governor Dunleavy's budget. From what we've been able to tell so far, the real hit for the city will be the loss of fish taxes if that's sustained. While that's a significant sum, the good news is several years ago the city council took those revenues out of the general fund and they're now go to the harbors and KPU. So it will not be a big impact on the general fund. I'm working with Ray Matuszewski, and hopefully by the meeting of the 7th we'll have a more defined statement that we can give the council as to the impacts. I did want to note to the council that earlier this week we got 2 letters from DEC. Our 2 rental cats are now permitted. We had to move them from Bailey. One is across from the Ketchikan substation near the ball field, and the other is near the water treatment facilities. We had to do that because if we left them at Bailey, it would have been an assessment of the cumulative impacts of all the generators down at Bailey, and it would have been a 3-month process to get them permitted as opposed to a week process. So the guys who did that in electric just did a yeoman's job. Both Andy's management people, but the line guys as well in moving those. I did want to pass this out to the council tonight, and I'll walk you through it real quickly. What you're seeing here, the first picture is a picture that was taken this morning of Swan Lake. You'll note that the elevation is 282, and you really can't see anything because the lake is frozen and covered with snow. The second photograph was taken of Swan in October, and its elevation was 280.2 feet. And you can tell by looking at that photograph that we are getting down to the lower limits of the lake, and right now we're 0.2 of a foot lower than the photograph that was taken in October. And then the last sheet is the forecast from tomorrow through next Friday. And unfortunately, you're seeing a lot of sunny weather, while temperatures will moderate later in the week and we'll get some inflows. We're looking at continued sustained diesel runs for the foreseeable future. And I know that's a concern not only to the council, but to the community. KPU, despite what many people think, we don't control the weather. And when there's no water in the lakes, we are forced to run the diesels, and that is what triggers the diesel surcharge. We will continue to be running ads in both print and on social media, urging residents to conserve, because it's going to take a while for us to get out of this situation. We are meeting weekly in terms of the SEPA board relative to the approved operations plan, relative to how far we can draw down the reservoirs. Unless the SEPA board approves lower limits, we effectively would be precluded from continuing to operate Swan. The operation plan for 2019 for Swan was 280. This past Monday, the board authorized taking that down to 278 on the condition that anything from 280 or below would be reserved exclusively for Ketchikan. Right now, we are taking 7 megawatts from Swan, and we're splitting it equally between Ketchikan and the northern communities of Petersburg and Wrangell. Our ability to continue doing that is probably going to be called into question unless we see some significant precipitation and have the reservoir recover. So that's where we are in terms of the extended diesel run and our weather forecast. Last thing on the KPU side, I would note that we did provide you with the residential electric service requirements draft. If the council wants to comment on that or spend some time with it, you might want to consider a work session, or if it looks good, you can tell me tonight and we'll move forward.
Is that on the, Carl, is that on the utility study one? Or
that's on what we put together for users of the electric utility, what they have to do to get service from us and the requirements they have to meet. We updated and consolidated everything, but before I released it, I wanted to give the council a preview of that. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Carl. I think this is probably a good time as any to talk about a little bit of conservation by the community, and I know that we're doing public media in regards to that. We're near a crisis situation with our water. That's very evident. And I guess we're just one catastrophe away from having an issue if we lose a diesel. So I guess Jeremy's probably the best one to talk about where we need to conserve. And we have these peaking moments where we have a hard time managing the amount. Jeremy, if you come up, of power that we have to generate to meet the morning rush and the evening rush. And so if you can kind of enlighten the public a little bit, because I'm asking them to try to figure out a way that they can conserve, turning off lights, lowering the thermostat, that type of stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Jeremy Bynum, Electric Division Engineer. So as far as conservation goes, when our temperatures drop into the freezing levels below 32 degrees, typically we've been seeing these temperatures drop down into the 20s. Early mornings and in the evenings, at times when people are getting up in the mornings, and then they're also getting home from work, we see spikes in consumption. And those are the times that we'd be asking for the community to do some conservation. So if you're getting up in the morning, taking shorter showers, getting up earlier to take your showers, those sorts of things, those things cause the loads to increase. When you get home, doing your laundry, defer those things. And when we have those cold temperatures, we're constrained on our peaking capacity. And when we hit those 31 megawatt loads, that's where we have our constraints in our diesel capacity and also with our reservoirs. So our message is that in the morning times when it's getting cold outside, to conserve, to defer some of those things that you would do in the morning, and then also in the evening to also conserve during those times.
Take showers a little later at night, maybe, off of that peak time. Same way with drying clothes and washing clothes, right. Maybe, that type of stuff. And
then I'd also say that one of the other things that we're seeing is community members have electric heat. That there's a lot of community members using space heaters. And space heaters are one of the things that we see causing a big demand for customers, and they'll see their bills go up dramatically if they keep those space heaters on throughout the day. So space heaters are meant for small spaces, very limited times while you're home, maybe to warm your bedroom in the evening or something like that. But we've had customers leaving those on throughout the day, and they're experiencing high bills because of that. So I would caution, if you have electric heat, to turn your thermostat down just a little bit. If you're not going to be home during the day, make sure that it's down while you're not home, and limit the use of space heaters. Those also have a big impact.
Well, I know SEPA and Cape U, as well as in the other communities, are going to do everything they can do to manage this time. But if we had a situation where we couldn't meet the demands, what is the ramifications?
Right now, with the generation that we have, we are able to do that. So if we had an emergency, like you said, with some of our diesel generation, some of our large diesel generators, that could become a reality. However, we're not currently in that situation.
Correct.
So we are able to meet our demands that we have now, especially since we brought on this contingency diesel generators that Carl was speaking of. That has really helped our cause with being able to meet those peak demands. I would say that we don't foresee that will be an issue. However, if that does become an issue, we will communicate to the council and to the community on what our measures would be, depending on temperatures. If temperatures were to fall into those freezing areas, we might see situations where we would have to shift loads around and make a determination on how we want to proceed with that. But at this time, I wouldn't say that we're in a critical mode of having rolling blackouts. I've heard lots of things on social media and around the community about rolling blackouts and things like that. We're not at that level now. We've put a lot of effort into planning and doing contingency studies about where we're at in our system and what we can do to prevent those things. We've been a little cautious on our end to be prepared. So I wouldn't say that we're at a high level of alarm for that situation to come along. We're working in our utility, working with partners in the community, and also with our other partner agencies and communities up north to alleviate that kind of concern.
General?
So I've been hearing from some community members that they've had like electric bills. They're like, they rent, so they're like seeing $800 electric bills, which seem crazy to me. I'm thinking grow lights, but it's just me. But is there a possibility that they might have a meter problem that needs to be addressed, or?
I would say that if customers are seeing extremely high bills, that they should contact us on an individual basis. We will get with them and give them an evaluation on what they, if there may be an issue. Mm-hmm. I would say that we keep a pretty good eye on those situations, and our meter department does flag services that do come in unexpectedly high. Mm-hmm. So we do stay on top of that as far as a metering perspective. I would say that those conditions are probably because of space heaters, electric heat, and that sort of thing. If the community members have a concern about specifically high bills, I would encourage them to give our office a call, give me a call, and we will do what we can to assess if there's an issue and give recommendations to them to prevent those things from happening.
And the fee for the diesel is only, what is it, it's $35, right?
So right now, I'm going to only speak to what I know of the diesel surcharge as of today. Our current electric rate is customers pay for electric based on the kilowatt usage and kilowatt hours. Your normal kilowatt hour rate is 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour, there's about. And the current diesel surcharge is about 1.8 cents. So we're seeing about just over 10%, 18% increase in the diesel surcharge. I'm sorry, for the electric rate. So it's about 12 cents a kilowatt hour. I would say that our electric rate, as far as a kilowatt hour rate goes, is one of the lowest in Southeast Alaska and Alaska as a whole. Mm-hmm. We're very competitive with the nation as a whole. So we have very affordable electric rates, even with the surcharge.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah, I think that the message is if you can conserve at this point, it would certainly help us out as we try to get through this.
Yes, sir.
This tough time here. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that brings us down City Clerk's file.
None, Your Honor.
City Attorney's file.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Future agenda items.
We had a couple of them.
Yeah. Yes.
I noticed on the award of contract 1901, the fire station doors, that it would have gone to a local bidder with local employees had it been had the cap been raised, I mean, just a few dollars too, in my opinion, a few dollars. The difference between 6,000, but we're talking about a $300,000 project. It went to a non-local who's not going to use local employment, and our cap is 300,000 or 200,000.
Less is when they do local bidder preference.
How long has it been that?
A long time.
A long time.
Anyway, I'd like it put on the agenda to increase that.
We can add that for our discussion. All right. We have any other new business?
Actually,
How about mayor and council comments?
I just have a quick question. I was looking at the water utility study report, and I noticed that in a couple of places in Jackson, their water rates went up like 233%. Was that a water break or something? I mean, that just seems like
I think not.
when we're conserving, it's like.
Those, basically, the homes that are there on Jackson Street, we're just using the data as something data honestly gathering. And we've spoken to the residents of the home that you mentioned, and the results have not been very positive. Essentially, I think they have a leaky toilet, and a leaky toilet can go through 1,000, 1,500 gallons a day.
Wow.
And that's why you see the high number.
Okay.
And so that's where meters were.
Well, yeah, I was just shocked at it went from 3,000 gallons to 10,000. I was just like,
yes.
And 27,000 from 6,000. So.
So that brings us down to mayor and council comments. Generally.
I pretty much said everything I wanted to say today.
Julie.
This is the first year I've been on the council that I haven't been on the community grants committee, so I just wanted to thank those of you who were on it. Dave's right, it's where you get to hear all the great things that go on. I was happy not to be on it this year, but thank you for making the decisions, and I did see the packet, and just thank you.
Dick.
Yeah, just to let everybody know, I know you're going into executive. I'm going to hang around because I want to be part of the whatever we do whenever you come out of it. But just as you go in there, a couple of my comments and my thoughts is I am fully against any type of articulating movable gangway on our dock. After having watched several ports in the past 2 weeks, the only place there was even one of them was in Fort Lauderdale, and it was the main thing. So, and also the other thing is that we do not have the space to accommodate one of those things and still move our passengers around in a timely manner. So I think that to me the articulating gangway or whatever they want to call it for either docks 1 or 2 should be just taken off the charts, not even considered. If one of the proposals that they've got sitting there and it was to deal with dock 1, and I think probably a floating dock on dock 1 is something we need to consider. We may need to alter the design to where it's cheaper and just say leave dock 2 and see what happens. But you guys go in and discuss it. We'll decide when we come back out. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if they move forward, they suggested a March 21, 22 presentation to the council, and I'd prefer that be delayed till I got back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Dave.
Sorry, we're short staffed tonight. Folks all get better soon. And yeah, boy, as much as I like winter weather, I've had it.
Yeah.
I've just had it, and Carl, this is really disappointing to see it. We have another week of cold.
Mark?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of cutting.
So, I was in Juneau for the last 2 days at the conference in AML. The story is the state is going to do less with less. There is cost shifting. Similar things like repealing the school debt reimbursement. That puts that cost to the school districts at about $100 million throughout the state. As we kind of peeked at the numbers and tried to figure it out, the Ketchikan Gateway Borough would be about a $9 million hit. And so, and they don't have that to make up. They're talking about taking surplus monies out of ADA. We know that ADA's helped us down here a lot with our shipyard and other things. I think the first year they're going to look at 80-some million, and the second year it's 170 million of surplus funds for them. The governor has asked for a $1.6 million cut with no new revenues or with the use of the permanent fund.
1.6 billion. Right?
Billion. Yeah, excuse me. And
I'd rather check for 1.6 million right now.
He's also told everybody if you take anything out or off the table, you have to replace it with something. I think the impacts, as we discussed them in the mayor's conference, was more taxes at the local level and a reduction in public safety, probably. The Alaska Marine Highway cuts are unreasonable. There was a number of legislators that came and saw us. We were disappointed that the governor himself didn't come down and support his budget. And I think that with the newly formed House, as you look up at the makeup and their first day, I think, that's a day 4 for them today. They had a committee assignments, and a lot of the governor's bills, which will make his budget happen, were assigned to numerous committees, which in political language means they're probably not going to see the light of day. So it's going to be an interesting process. They all remind us that it is a process. The governor's budget is a proposed budget. It's up to the legislature to go through that. But our senator, who I think has got the best handle on this thing up there, we're very fortunate to have him, is now it's a matter of negotiations because the governor has the power of veto, and you shouldn't put something together that you know he's just going to run a red pen across it. You're not gaining any process. So it's going to be a matter of negotiations to get there. And I think the conference committee this year between the House and the Senate is going to be extremely interesting to watch. So all the communities are concerned. We had meetings scheduled to talk to like Ken Alfar, who's from the Budget and Audit Group, and he just told us, you know as much about the governor's budget as we do at this particular point in time. So there's everybody's going to have to really get in there and find out where the cuts are and what are going to happen, but it's going to be up to the legislature to figure out what they can offer up the governor at the end of this. And so they're going to be in session, I think, for a considerable amount of time. That's what I got out of it. So that brings us down to an executive session, request for an executive session to discuss negotiations, options, and strategies related to the expansion of the city port facilities to accommodate Neo-Panamax class cruise ship vessels entering the Alaska market. Do I have a motion?
Your Honor?
Yes.
I move the City Council declare that consistent with the City Manager's memorandum dated February 12, 2019, is it in the best interest of the City Council to discuss in executive session negotiation options and strategies related to expansion of the city port facilities to accommodate the Neo-Panamax class cruise ship vessels that will be calling on Ketchikan over the next several years in accordance with KMC 204-025A1, which includes the needs to discuss subjects the knowledge of which would clearly have an immediate impact on the finances of the city.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. Discussion. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Isom?
Yes.
Flora?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Kiefer?
Yes.
That passes. We will.
You should try that seriously.
Go into executive session.
We're going to be in the room.
Yeah, waiting for more people to answer. All right. We'll come back to order. We're out of executive session. We do have a substitute motion.
Your Honor, I move the City Council direct the City Manager to request a proposal from Bermello, Ahamel and Partners, Inc. to value engineer Moffett and Nichols 35% design to the reconfigurations of berth 1 and 2 to accommodate one Neo-Panamax vessel and to secure a separate proposal from Bermello, Ahamel and Partners, Inc. to assist the city in soliciting industry financial participation in the construction of facilities as may be mutually agreed upon and approved by the City Council.
Second.
Moved and second. Dave, any comment?
No, I think it kind of speaks for itself.
Okay.
It's a slightly different direction than we were going before.
Mark?
Yeah.
Oh. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, would you just repeat that one more time for me? It was a little scratchy.
Can we fax it?
I'll have Julie read it for you.
How about we text it to you?
Okay.
Dick, the motion is, I move the City Council direct the City Manager to request a proposal from Brunello Ajamil and Partners, Incorporated, to value engineer Moffett and Nichols 35% design for the reconfiguration of berths 1 and 2 to accommodate one Neo-Panamax vessel and to secure a separate proposal from Bermello Ajamil and Partners, Incorporated, to assist the city in soliciting industry financial participation in the construction of facilities as may be mutually agreed upon and approved by the City Council.
Okay, thank you. Are you ready for?
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, I guess to clarify, we're looking for them to value engineer, re-engineer two floating docks, and then go out and work with industry. So is that the gist of it right there, to get it down in price to where we think we can afford it with the right means?
Good. Just a minute, Dick. Carl.
Dick, this is Carl. The proposal would be to reconfigure berths 1 and 2 to accommodate one Neo-Panamax vessel at that end of the docks. Per council direction, you only wanted 1 and 2 to house one Neo-Panamax vessel. One of the other two vessels, I would assume, would be capable of handling a Panamax vessel or smaller.
And we're going to look.
So the Panamax.
Go ahead, Dick.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, and so it's back to the original options that we looked at with Moffett Nichols. We were putting one large one at 1 and another one at 2. And we're going to look at the designs of the floats and the options that we may have out there to proceed with a floating system similar to what they had originally designed.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anybody else?
A couple things just real fast, John.
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
When I was looking through the report, first off, I'm going to support this motion. I've gotten some calls, and there was comment tonight about also putting together a committee to get some input from industry, the cruise industry, downtown merchants. If that comes to pass, I'd also like to see some folks not connected to the tourist industry based on the following statement. This is from B&A's report to us that reaches back 10 years, actually. This success brings back the same issues that the original plan in 2004-2005 tried to address, which included the holistic development of the city, not just the cruise business. Well, we have a gentleman tonight in here telling us that the cruise industry is great and the town is worse off than it was 10 years ago. So I would say, by and large, given the recent 10-year history or 15-year history at this point, we haven't quite hit the mark. So while we're looking at how we configure the docks and who are going to be participants, I'm going to beat this drum every meeting. Holistic development of the city. And I would like to see people who aren't stakeholders and first-party recipients of the cruise industry more involved so that we have a community that benefits from this, or we're in peril of repeating this same mistake, and 10 years from now we'll be talking about our winters are slower and what debt we're going to bond for infrastructure, because we're not better off. And I'm going to bring that up every time this discussion comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else? Please call the roll.
Kiefer?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Flora?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
That passes 5-0. So that brings us down to item 16. Is that right? Unless there's any other comments from the council members?
Move to adjourn, right? Safe travels, Dick. Have fun, Dick.
I am. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Hey, Dick, I want some Mexican vanilla.
I did not. I turned my phone off.
Some almond tequila. No.